The wrong button. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry about that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and call to order 5:30, and we're going to go ahead and open with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. All rise, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to go ahead and move to item number 2. Roll call, please.
Chair Lujan,
Here.
Vice Chair Potter,
Here.
Commissioner Rubicava,
Here.
Commissioner Spencer,
Here.
Commissioner Wendell.
Here. Jeez, that's loud.
Thank you. We're going to move to item number 3, adoption of the agenda, and we do want to make one adjustment on the number 7, discussion and action items. We'd like to swap 7.1 and 7.3, so that way the Rotary Park infield renovation update would move to 7.1. And the special events permit process review of revisions scheduled for proposed adoption and approval by City Council would be moved to 7.3. Can I get a motion? Would I be motioning that? Okay, so I motion to make that adjustment. Can I get a second?
Second.
And a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And is there any opposed? Okay. Seeing none, adoption of agenda passes. Item number 4, announcements and presentations. Seeing none, we're going to move to, might be a typo, I guess we'll go with 6, public comment.
Oh, yeah, that is. Sorry about that.
No worries. We'll just go in order how it's printed. Number 6, public comment, non-agenda items. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the Recreation Commission on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. The Commission Chair reserves the right to limit the speaker's time to 3 minutes. You are not allowed to make personal attacks on individuals or make comments which are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy. And do we have any oral communication? Or excuse me, do we have any written communication?
There are none.
Okay. And then for our oral comments, is there any member of the public that would like to come forward on any non-agenda items this evening? Okay. And seeing none, we're going to go ahead and close public comment on any non-agenda items. And we're going to go ahead and move forward to number 7, discussion action items, and we'll start with the 7.1 Rotary Park infield renovation update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you may remember from our last meeting, we had a brief comment from our Hangtown Little League president, and they had noted a little bit around what they had hoped to do in regards to the renovation for the infield. Before I invite her up to share a little bit of the update, I do want to say that as far as our deferred maintenance goes throughout the city and all of our parks, one of the greatest assets that we have within our community are the organizations that not only support to facilitate the programming and to facilitate the activities, but also working with other community members to find the resources necessary to upkeep those fields. And so it is a huge component of us being able to sustain all of the things that we're doing with the maintenance of the field. So I do want to say that we appreciate what they're doing and all of their partners. But Ms. Christie, if you want to come up. Tonight's presentation basically has to do with some of the safety concerns that some of the public and users have noted in regards to the quality of the infield and the grass. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Christie, where she could just kind of share, and then I'll help, we can support each other in regards to giving them an
Is there a
update.
time limit again?
No.
Okay, I'm like, is that clock?
Yeah, no, this is part of that. This is part of the presentation.
Okay, just making sure. Hi, Christy again. Thank you for letting us kind of jump ahead. My kids are kind of like hungry and eager to go home for dinner. So we have spent the last, I don't know, probably year trying to figure out how to make Rotary what I guess Rotary was when it was a kid. I didn't play baseball as a child, but the stories I hear, this is the place that everybody wants to play or has played or talks about from down the hill. So we have noticed that over the last spring, we've done our best, but it's just hasn't been good with the weather and stuff. It became kind of unsafe for us to use it in terms of, we call it like rotary hops. The infield the grass just got more moundy gopher style holes and it wasn't smooth. So if any kid hit a ground ball or a coach was trying to train ground balls for fielders, you would just knock one kid right in the teeth. So we were kind of coming up with an idea of what we could do. Originally, because we didn't have the funding at the time, we were going to go all dirt. Well, that kind of raised a ruckus, taking out the infield, which was nice because a lot of community members came to us to try and troubleshoot how we could fix this. So we are working with Vicini on redoing the irrigation or the drainage problem that we were having. So we discovered the biggest problem with keeping our grass safe and playable was when it would rain like today, infield became like a pool. It was just standing water. It would take us like a week to get the water to get out. We would have to add clay dirt and all this kind of stuff, which would then raise the infield dirt to higher than the outfield dirt. And then we just were, kind of playing the upward slope of what we should be in baseball. So we reached out with him and came up with a plan on how to properly regrade the infield. So going forward, we wouldn't need to add so much dirt. We could just keep it maintainable and the water would drain like it was supposed to. It's just years and years of us trying to Band-Aid things, kind of backfired long-term, I think. So we now, if you see, I don't know what page it is in your packet, but they drew us up like a proper drainage. So it has the proper, we had Vicini and Beer Camp come out to kind of give us an idea of what we should be doing, and they both informed us we need a half grade to 1% grade in a certain direction out left field, so behind third base, to drain that part correctly because of the hill from the playground and ours, it just all kind of went to home base. We didn't want it to go to home plate anymore, so we came up with a plan, and he agreed to do that for us. Originally, we were going to pay labor costs for that project, which we were fine with. And then last weekend, he informed us he donated all of his costs to us, so it cost us nothing to redo that, which we were very happy about. So we worked with him, and then we brought out the discussion. Ron Thompson and Miguel Garcia came out to talk to us about the grass. That's where I really learned how much people were tied to infield grass at Rotary Park, because I didn't play baseball. So they came to us in a solution on how to fix it. We didn't have the $20,000 to $30,000 to do it. We already spent a bunch of money on a couple other fields to make it safe to play. But they had so graciously donated their money and time to help us fix that. So Miguel Garcia is putting in the irrigation for us, redoing all of the sprinklers so that they water correctly. We can keep the grass growing like we need to instead of having weeds. He's helping us with the maintenance aspect, because when we are in playing season, we need to mow it a little bit more frequently. And that's because that's our needs, not what the city needs to do. The city does a great job at keeping it, healthy and fine, but anyone that's played baseball, you kind of need a little bit shorter grass than what they can do for us. So he has agreed to help us with maintaining it year-round. So he will become our extra landscaper that will help fertilize it, weed and feed it, trim it down, keep our irrigation going, just kind of be that set of eyes that I'm not a landscaper. I don't know the early signs of when grass is going bad. But he is also helping us. We discovered our bases were not accurate. They had shifted over time. So first base was like a foot short. Second base was a little bit further than it was supposed to be. So our diamond was not correct. So he agreed to help fix us with that. And then Ron Thompson is helping and Rotary Park is helping us with covering the costs. So we will not have any costs coming on the city or on our organization, which was nice. We didn't have to raise our registration this year to help cover for this. That being said, we plan to do it in phases. The first one and the biggest one we needed to get done was Vicini coming in, because obviously the weather was our biggest scare, because it's wintertime. We don't really have a long down season in baseball. So he has agreed to help us with that. And then Miguel was out there to help double check. If you see, we had ideas of where we thought all the irrigation was, because it was quite buried. So he is resketching plans for us as a Little League and to help the city in finding where those are, because they were very, very buried under about 6 and 7 inches of dirt. So we're replacing those. Some of the pipes had broken over the years. We're replacing some of the water valves that we were having some problems with, just getting it back to where it's maintainable for both us and to help with the city. And then our last phase, we will be putting in fresh sod. So the only thing that we had to change, we wanted to make Rotary Park more than just a field for 11 and 12-year-olds. We felt, I have a 9-year-old, and the concept and the idea of playing at Rotary is like Major League Baseball style. Like, they think if they can go play at Rotary under the lights, they are playing for the Giants and they just hit a grand slam. So we as a board, after talking to the members who were helping with this project, we are putting in a mobile mound and pegging the field to accommodate more age groups. So it will accommodate from 8-year-olds all the way up to 13-year-olds now. We wanted to, I know at first we had some parents that were not super happy because they're like, it's only 11, 12-year-olds. But we realized after talking with kids that had played there and how much excitement it brings and how much other leagues looking forward to playing at that field. And with our limited number of fields for the older kids to play at around here, it was in our best interest to try and make that a more usable field for us long term. Our older age group program is growing, and we just don't have the fields for them. 50-70 is a dimension that most parks don't accommodate, because wasn't a popular size, but now a travel ball, it's a lot more popular, so we are fighting with that. So we are bringing in a mobile mound that will allow 8-year-olds to up to 50-70 play at Rotary Park, which will bring us more families to that park, will help us keep it going, and then hopefully in turn bring more excitement to the community. So, any questions for me? Have I missed something?
Yes, I have a question. The irrigation, phase 1 irrigation, correct?
That part, we mapped it to have an idea. Once he grades it and gets it properly done, and because then we'll relay out where we're going to put the infield material, then we will, if we need to move the irrigation in any way, raise it or lower it, then that's when we'll put that in there final.
Is there a date for that?
So Vicini is finishing up his work, luckily just before the rain came in. Miguel is going to come in, we're hoping, he said, right after Thanksgiving to get that part done. He just needs about a week to get in there to dig it up where it's not raining every day. And then the sod will go in. He just needs a weekend and he'll lay that sod. And then we will fence off with, I don't know, it's called the orange fence we use. We will fence off the infield to keep people off so the sod can take. He says we need about a month for it to be like good to go.
Good, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question. I know that the residents in the area like to use actual Rotary Park as a dog park, that I've noticed. Do you guys have plans on what you're going to do in that situation when they're bringing their dogs out there, the locals that live there? How are you going to protect the sod in that case?
So we talked about fencing off just the infield. If we just fence off the infield, it allows the whole outfield. There's two entrances to that field that they can do. We plan to block the front one, which takes you to the infield. But the back part, I don't know if you're familiar with Rotary, by the dugouts, there is a gate that you can go in, and that will take you to the whole outfield part where they can let their dogs run and play and do their business.
And do you have any type of notification that you'll be giving to the residents of that area so they understand what's going on and are welcoming it?
So we were working with the city on doing it. We plan to put out flyers, and then we plan on putting it on social media. Some of our board members have talked to some of the families out there because we've been out there a ton trying to figure it out and kind of letting them know on a personal basis. But we'd worked with the city. We're supposed to be putting out stuff to let them know.
I think this is amazing. I played there. We won our District 54 All-Star Championships there. And it's exactly like you say. We loved it. It was the best time of our lives, and I really am excited for this project.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to add to that as well. I'm incredibly impressed with all the efforts you guys have made for fundraising, for volunteerism. I'm actually incredibly wowed at the progress that you've been able to make with your teams, with your, and in partnership with city staff. So I have nothing but kudos to you. I'm incredibly impressed, and I want to say thank you so much for caring enough about this park to make it so enhanced and better for our children and our community. I have nothing but positive feedback for you, and thank you. I really genuinely want to say thank you as well, because we need more effort like this in our community.
Well, I don't want to take all the credit. Is he here? This guy back here, Anthony Middleton, I just the one that he makes talk in front of everything. He has done more work than I can thank someone to do, especially the groundwork of trying to find people to help us is probably the hardest job out of all this. So Anthony, I think, deserves most of that credit. I just try and support him the best I can. But yes, it's been fun, and it's been a lot of work, but it's good.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Well, we're going to give you guys, we're going to clap for you guys, because honestly, we're very impressed. It's incredible. I wanted to piggyback a little bit on the dog thing, and correct me, maybe staff would know more about this. With dogs running through the fields, I mean, isn't there state laws stating that dogs aren't supposed to? I didn't think that was allowed at that park. Am I wrong?
We can reference that in a little bit. What we'll do
sure.
is we'll finish questions and then open up for public comment, and then we can deliberate.
Okay.
It's okay, because there's a lot of context there too.
Okay.
I don't want to
Gotcha.
prolong it. That's okay.
Okay, certainly. Do you guys have any other questions for the presenter? Okay. Thank you so much again.
Thank you guys very much, and thanks for moving it up for us.
Yes, of course, absolutely. Is there any member of the public that would like to provide feedback on this agenda item? And if you could please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Okay, and seeing none, we're going to go ahead and close public comment on this agenda item.
Yeah, although it's not an actionable item, I will give a brief update. And yes, thank you to Anthony and Christy and Hangtown Little League. A couple of things that were significant support for the city in general was the irrigation map and some of that troubleshooting. As we all know, it is kind of an aged park, right? And so over time, as you're scraping back the dirt, you're burying some of that galvanized pipe and trying to find out where those things are. That's a huge investment from one of our community partners to be able to help support the city with a lot of those pieces. And the buy-in long-term is significant as well. As part of that component, it also provides us a little more versatility, as she stated earlier, allowing multiple ages to play on a premier field is huge, especially like she was saying with some of the experience for the young kids who want to be able to get to that kind of level, right? And so as part of that component, there is a global thing that we need to look at in regards to use for that park. So the next step is to take a look at, all right, what does the ordinance say in regards to leash laws, and are there opportunities for us to be able to design and build certain things as part of our master plan and long-term strategic planning? What are the options for dog users? At this point, because that has been the practice, right, we want to be able to help maintain that, and we appreciate Hangtown Little League for allowing that so we can at least close the front of the field for the infield. However, long-term, we are definitely looking at the outfield as well. Now, she was very kind to say about the hops and the gophers, but if I'm being completely transparent, and you know me, I am, we're going to need to do a lot of work on that field as well. However, as we're starting to prioritize all of the fields, which is another key component of why we have this meeting for those updates, we've also got Lions Park, we've got Lumsden Park, we've got City Park. So we've got to take a holistic view on some of those pieces, and we're just very fortunate in this situation to be able to do that. So to your point, yes, there is specific code in regards to leash laws, but at this point, we do not have a particular dog park in the area that residents can use. So we need to kind of mitigate that and work with them to do that. And I think a core component of that is not only more public communication, but public education in regards to what you can and can't do in the park. Because realistically, I'm not trying to jump and catch a fly ball and, you know how that would go if there are dogs out there. So with that said, I'm just. Yeah, exactly. So there are some work that the commission and myself and the rest of our staff are going to have to do in regards to that piece. So that's duly noted. Thank you, Lujan. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I do know from experience. I mean, I use that park. I go there and play catch with my kids, with some of my friends, and we do a lot of work in that area, tree work. So I do see that park used regularly with members of the community that live there for their dogs. It seems to be a reality for everybody, actually, that has a dog in that area. Probably something that we do need to address.
Okay. Well, I don't think we're taking any action items on this particular agenda piece. This is the presentation, and I would say that at this time, thank you for the update, and it's, I think this has our full support, and we're really excited to see some of this progression and the enhancements that it's creating for that park as well. With that being said, I don't think there's anything we need further on this one, right? Yeah, no action item on this one. Okay. So let me make sure I get my pages back in order here. I might have mixed a few up here. Hang on.
I believe we're staying in order with 7.2. Is that?
Yeah, I think I might have mixed my pages up. I apologize. Yeah, I'm like, thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move from 7.1 to 7.2, which is approve recommendation to reschedule monthly meetings from Wednesday to the Monday of the month.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In regards to the scheduling, a few significant transitions that I've made starting as the new director here is wanting to be able to provide a nice facility that's available to the public so they can access on a regular basis, and that would be here at Town Hall. It's also got some technological advances in regards to being able, not that we won't still be meeting in the park on occasion or doing different types of meetings, but creating a certain standard in regards to hosting Recreation and Park Commission meetings. Along with that, wanting to make sure that we're consistent with the week of the month that we're using, and as well as trying to make sure that it's strategic in regards to the day that we're choosing. And based on the feedback that we received from the public at the last meeting, it was duly noted in regards to choosing the Mondays for the third week. And so staff and I went back and we had a chance to create a calendar both for 2025 and 2026, and where we did indicate, based on the public's feedback, around January 20th for 2025 and February 17th, 2025, in regards to those being specific holidays that we won't host a meeting. And so the question that is on the commission tonight is, are there other opportunities and other options that we want to be able to host a meeting in January and in February? More importantly, what items that we have coming within that year that need to come to commission before we take them for recommendation to City Council. So if there are, for example, a fee or a shift or a change in something that we're doing in policy, we want to be able to take those in probably January or February and get them ready for City Council in February or March. And so there are going to be some nuances to this transition. However, staff's recommendation is to maintain the third week of each month and schedule each meeting for the Monday. Subsequently, in January and February, provide alternative options in regards to meeting dates, more specifically, because it is the beginning of a calendar year, to provide opportunities for us to do long-term strategic planning annually based on not only our events, but our programs, and then at the same time also provide opportunities for orientation and training on what the role is in regards to the commission and how we can be more intentional when we're taking a look at the master plan in 2017. More specifically, that was not included in the specific staff report, but as it started to evolve over the last couple of weeks, we did, in fact, for example, take an impact fee study to City Council so that we can start a contract with an engineering agency and a firm to look at our impact fees as far as development goes. Well, a core component of that impact fee study is taking a look at our master plan, where we are in our assessments around the types of parks, how much park acreage we have, what type of programs. And there's going to be a lot of legwork that needs to be done. And unless we have a strategic plan and we're oriented around what the role is and how specific we need to be when we're tackling this type of project, my goal or my recommendation to the commission is, all right, for January and February, although we don't have scheduled meetings on those Mondays, are there strategies that we can come up with in regards to hosting a meeting either during the week, ideally not during the weekend, but if it has to be, are there certain things that we can do and we can plan specifically so we can post it in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order and the Brown Act to get it done in advance so that during January and February, we have a strategic plan, we know what we're doing, we know what we're focusing on, we know what our priorities are so that we move forward through that year. Now, is it going to be perfect? Well, I can say this jokingly, if you ever meet a bureaucrat who writes a regulation and it's absolutely perfect, I'd like to shake his hand. So I'll say that nicely, that no, it's probably not perfect and there are a lot of probably nuances and I'm definitely open for that piece. With that said, I'm available for questions and for response to public comment.
Go ahead.
So what I understand, 7.2 is to move from Wednesday to Monday, correct? The meetings?
For January and February,
Yeah.
yeah. So, or, I'm sorry, say that last part again? Maybe I misunderstood.
7.2 was moving the meetings, these meetings here, from Wednesday to Monday.
Yes, correct, yes.
Are we voting on that?
So right now, we host
So
it
right
on
now,
the third.
question,
Yeah,
question.
so right now, we host it on the third Wednesday of the month. Staff is recommending to host it on the third Monday of the month. We did have another recommendation in regards to moving it either on the second or the fourth, but city council is on that Tuesday, which, I mean, I don't mind back-to-back meetings, but on the case that a commissioner or someone would want to be at both meetings, that's 2 meetings back-to-back in the same week, so scheduling could become an issue.
I guess my question would be, are there other practices from other cities, counties, that is common practice to hold a workshop or something more specific if we hosted something different in January and February? Is there a recommendation that's common, or before we get public comment on it?
Yeah, so typically what will tend to happen is a commission, in my experience, working for both the County of Sacramento and the City of Oakley and as well as Rio Linda Alberta Recreation and Park District, typically that's what we'll do. We'll have what's called strategic planning sessions and then we'll go ahead and we'll outline. City Council does that similarly in regards to identifying what the vision is, what your mission statement is, which allows you, and we'll get into it when we talk about the special events a little bit. Those strategic planning sessions allow for a more intentional and thick dialogue in where more formal settings such as this, we have a very dialed-in strategy, right? So there's a structure here in regards to public comment. And so when we do those workshops in January and in February, that allows us to kind of have that kind of brainstorming session or those kind of understandings around, all right, let's have some dialogue here, in where in other cases from probably March throughout December, it's less dialogue and it's more action, right? So that's kind of the hope, if that makes any sense, as part of that best practice.
Okay. And then I guess the other thing is something that would be more Placerville specific is if, let's say, for example, January, there was the strategic planning workshop session that's held. In February, could it be something that's Placerville specific? For example, I think it's April sometime, we usually have the Rise and Shine volunteer events. So maybe looking at a workshop, for example, that's what kind of things would we like to target on that particular volunteer event, and maybe have members of the community come forward saying, hey, we could use some help over here at this park or another area. Would that be something, for example, that could be?
I think that would be great. I mean, we could even put out a survey before we do those strategic planning sessions and set some priorities from the public. You know, a good example is we were fortunate when Hangtown Little League came in and they're like, hey, we have an MOU with you. These are some of the things that we want to be able to do. And if we're able to get the notice out in advance and kind of let people know, well, this is the plan and this is kind of the draft agenda and kind of where we're going with those pieces, I think it would be advantageous of us to kind of get that prior to going into it. The other caveat to that, too, is if you take a look at the terms of kind of where our commissioners are, there are going to be new commissioners potentially, or same commissioners, there would be a potential planned shift in March, which was brought to my attention by one of our residents here. And that component could potentially be something that we talk about, as we go through those meetings in January and February. Do those priorities shift? Or are those, and so taking into account kind of what you're suggesting around where are those priorities, getting that feedback from the public would help to set some consistency around that piece. So it's not a bad idea.
Okay. Do you have any other questions for staff? Otherwise, I can open it up for public comment. Good? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and open this item up for public comment. If anybody would like to come forward, please keep your time to 3 minutes.
Ruth Michelson. Right, so the main issue is January and February and when you're going to meet or what you're going to do. And so I was the one actually who called in and said, with the new city council coming in January, and then they have their interviews, and some of you will interview to be, it's that 3 and 2 and 3 and 2 that happens each time. And so I had just asked Dennis, do you want to be doing your strategic planning with maybe not the current board or commission that you'll have, but I guess you'll have the wisdom of the experience, and maybe you will set some strategy for the incoming group. I guess there's a couple ways of looking at it, but that's okay. That resident named Ruth Michelson. No, that's fine. Whatever. It's your commission. I think if I was new coming on, I'd want to be part of that strategy discussion. And I'm not sure why it's so complicated to find another date than the third Monday. And how much time do I have? And also, I'm the one who said it's a holiday. That doesn't necessarily, there are some people who actually meet on holidays. It doesn't mean that you can't meet. I just don't know if there's city staff here to open the building. So anyway, my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public that would like to provide public comment on this agenda item? Okay, and seeing none, we're going to go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to commissioners. Did you guys have any other additional thoughts, questions, feedback? Good. I wouldn't know which holiday without looking at my phone to see, but I think there was a holiday in January and February.
MLK and President's Day.
So I'm in favor of putting forward the motion to switch the dates. I like the idea of doing a workshop. And if it's better, if there's going to be some changes and shifts, perhaps the workshop could be, I guess, setting priorities for community members, and perhaps a workshop on getting feedback and giving the public an opportunity to come forward to bring issues of concerns or problems that they feel that they're experiencing within city limits of Placerville in relation to parks and recreation. Do you guys have any thoughts on that, or support or feedback?
I agree. I think we need to bring the community in. That's why we're here. So if we can do that and implement that, I'm all in.
Okay. Because
And I also agree that we shouldn't wait until, the new commission is set in May to hold these workshops. I mean, it's pertinent that we get this information out, we get the strategy planning together, and we have a plan in place prior to that taking place instead of waiting until May or June to do that, for sure.
okay, thank you. So I would say, and so would we need to put the motion for that more specifically? Okay, so I would say I would motion to accept the calendar changes. Would we need to pick a different date for January then for this workshop? Would that need to be done now?
No, we don't have to do that now. We just need to motion in regards to what was written in the report. So if a commissioner wants to make a motion and then we get a second, and then you can call the vote.
Okay, and I might have mixed up that page, I apologize. I have just the calendar in front of me.
I'll read it. Approve recommendation to reschedule monthly meetings from Wednesday to Monday, in where staff recommends that the regular monthly meetings will be moved from the third Wednesday of the month to the third Monday of the month.
That's correct.
If you want to make the motion, you can make the motion as written, would be the.
I'll make a motion as written.
I'll second.
And then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Rukavla, and motion passes. Thank you.
Okay. Do we need to make any additional motion for the workshop, or that's
No, that'll just be part of the,
moving forward with the calendar? Okay, I just wanted to double check on that.
and no nays.
Okay.
I do have a question, though, if I may.
Yes.
So when are we planning on notifying the community of this workshop? We're in December in a couple of weeks, so it'll be going out in December, sometime in January, February?
Once we establish what staff schedules look like and some of our priorities going into kind of our busier season, we'll nail down a date and we'll nail down the location, and then we'll figure out the agenda. And then as soon as all of those kind of things, once we get the 5 Ws, who, what, when, where, why, then we'll do the notification. As soon as possible, pretty much.
Thank you. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and close 7.2, and we'll move to 7.3, which is the special events permit process review of revisions scheduled for proposed adoption and approval by City Council.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll just have a little bit of technical difficulties. Make sure that's showing on the screen. You're awesome. Thank you. I feel like I'm pretty good at this, but apparently I'm not. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Before you tonight is our special events permit process and review of the revision scheduled for proposed adoption and approval by City Council in December. As many of you know, both on the commission and in our community, this has been a very fun and exciting journey as I've been onboarded here in less than 90 days. I do want to say that I appreciate everyone's input and everyone's passion for special events, especially as it has to do with community involvement. So a little bit of pomp and circumstance. Let me get my soapbox. In my experience of almost 25 years, one of the greatest challenges is to get high-level community involvement, both from businesses and residents. At that point, even as we look at Hangtown Little League, the type of involvement and passion and care that we have for the things that our Recreation and Parks and Department of Community Services do is phenomenal, right? So really what our hope is to just kind of sharpen up some of those components. So I'm going to walk through a little bit of where our change, I'm going to walk through all of the changes or the primary ones that may impact a lot of the planning and some of the things that we've done in the past, and then we'll leave time for questions and answers from the commission and then for public comment. So with that said, I'm actually going to start at our vision because this is going to paint the picture and provide some framework around the reason why, right? And so I have a very strong philosophy around explaining the why behind why we do certain things, right? And I jokingly said during the last meeting, not a lot of people want to be regulated. Trust us, we don't want to be the regulators. So we want to make sure that we're all on the same page behind why we're doing that. And our vision as a city is we want to be welcome. We are a welcoming, active, and business-friendly rural foothill community built on California's gold rush history. Now, that's going to be a core component to some of the reasons why we've classified some of the events in the manner that we did. As our mission, we want to be safe, effective, and efficient and responsive with our process and our policies on why we're doing specific things. We're not just going to create something just because we think it's a good idea. We're not going to change certain things. We're only going to change the things that we know are vital to the sustainability of what we're wanting to do, right? Along those lines, what we're hoping to accomplish for our purpose is, number one, we want to be fiscally responsible, and we value honest and ethical leadership. That's first and foremost. We want to be good stewards of the resources that were provided by our residents, and we want to be fiscally responsible to be able to do that well. We want to support economic prosperity and the development of providing the community amenities that meet the needs of our citizens and visitors. Gold Rush history, historic, something amazing that we need to sustain, that we not only need to teach in our schools, but we need to teach our families and our residents and our new residents to come. We want to also support local commerce, and we want to provide well-planned infrastructure and high-quality services to meet the current and future needs. As we know, things shift. We have seasons, we have market trends, we have inflation. There are a lot of different things. So we want to be able to design a process and protocol that also meets those specific needs. So if I was to take all of those pieces and encompass it into 3 specific buckets, we want to be responsible, we want to be equitable, and we want to be sustainable. Those are very, very important components. We want to be responsible with the resources that were provided. We want to be equitable to all of those who want to be able to support us in providing that service. And we want to look long-term in regards to sustainability. Some of the research and development will be done, and I wish I could have fit it all on one screen, as we've started down this journey to revise our existing special events application, is doing research with Grass Valley Downtown Association, Grass Valley Chamber of Commerce, City of Yuba City, City of Roseville, existing City of Placerville events applications and guidelines, current and past leadership of Placerville downtown businesses, city departments and divisions, downtown businesses and merchants, and El Dorado County. And I could tell you very, very poignantly that I've done my very best to meet with as many stakeholders as possible to ensure that not only that I've heard what they're saying, but processing it and trying my best to apply it to the best of my knowledge and our ability. But there are going to be components where we just kind of agree to disagree, right? And so these are my best recommendations as we kind of move forward. But as part of the due diligence, we did a lot of research and support with that, right? And so a lot of our community outreach also extends back with utilizing the Placerville Economic Advisory Committee's survey. So we took that survey, then we also included the City Council Special Events Workshop, which took place this past summer. The Department of Community Services also provided an online survey. We had a follow-up special events community meeting. This is our second time coming back to the Recreation Commission meeting, and then we're going to be taking it again to City Council. So in my experience, and in specifically what I'm saying, I feel we've done a fairly good job with our due diligence, including all the stakeholders currently involved or potentially impacted by this revision. As I've gathered all of that information, I've done a basic SWOT analysis in regards to our strengths, opportunities, and weaknesses, right? And so if we take a look, I've highlighted a few of the components because I'm looking for clear identifiers that we can not only capitalize on some of our opportunities, but really reshift and pivot some of our weaknesses and our threats so that we can all be on the same page. So some of our strengths, collaboration. Like I shared earlier at the beginning of my presentation, pretty amazing. We have a lot of people who are passionate about being involved. Sponsorships, volunteers. We have a gorgeous downtown. We've got amazing parks. We've got things that we can definitely capitalize on. And our culture, which again goes back to the very beginning of my presentation, right? Some of our opportunities, right, that we have ahead of us. Sustainability, fiscal prudence, and again, there's that word collaboration. If we can capitalize on those pieces, that would be amazing, right? Now, some of our weaknesses, we understand as I'm going through the budget and I'm going through some of our staffing levels, our resources and collaboration, we could sharpen up, right? We can utilize those and in better ways so that we can get a better return on our investment. Now, some of our threats, the threats would be more of the exterior components that kind of impact what we're trying to do with the changes, and some of those impacts are basically new regulations. For example, El Dorado Environmental Health has a significant new process in regards to processing temporary food permits, which we'll answer some questions around that later. Inflation, as we all know, has grown tremendously over the last 12 to 18 months. and costs, both internal and external, or what we are classifying as indirect or direct costs to the city as either a sponsor, a co-sponsor, or what we're calling lead sponsor, right? So taking all of those things into account, these are some of our goals that we're wanting to accomplish by implementing this new process, or sharpening up our existing process. I apologize. How shall the city accomplish our mission? This is very, very specific. Identifying well-defined and equitable guidelines and policies, procedures to manage special event applications for the city. These events may take place throughout the city of Placerville on public property, including but not limited to Main Street, parks, and facilities. Revisions on the previously approved application and guidelines support streamlining the event planning, increases the effectiveness of cost management, and ensures events are compliant with required regulations. Our outcomes, if we are able to answer this question and do this appropriately, is to be responsible with our fiscal oversight, quality resource management in regards to how we're scheduling our guys, what we're actually doing, and I'll use a very poignant example. Meridians are expensive for us to put out, but long-term investment to put in bollards that we're able to install, now those are options that we're taking a look at. So then that way, very similar to other cities, City of Folsom and City of Rose, all of these other municipalities that have simple and clear actions in regards to closing off streets, right? So we're not reinventing the wheel. Sustainability of our culture and tradition. These are very, very important components to our community. Increased collaboration and compliance with county, state, and city municipal codes and other regulations. And most importantly, we want people to be safe and healthy and obviously have fun. That's the whole point, right? It's a special event. We want to have fun. That's the whole point of us being able to do this. We want to do it in a safe and healthy manner so people that can have fun. The second goal is, what role could the city play? What role could the city play? And we talked a little bit about this, about identifying those events, and we talked about it in length around defining certain things. The recommendation is to define what a legacy event is. A long-standing traditional event occurring annually with a focus on upholding the heritage of the city of Placerville's culture and history. These events focus on creating opportunities to build community, enrich positive relationships throughout the city, and have a direct impact to the residents, businesses, and visitors of the city of Placerville. And those are our priorities: our residents, our businesses, and our visitors, right? We're not driving economic development, but we're supplementing, we're supporting it, right? So how would we play that lead sponsor role as continuing and maintaining and identify Halloween on Main Street, hometown holidays, formerly known as Festival of Lights, and the annual fishing derby? The third goal is, how may the city support other special events? We would define those as historical event, an event hosted within the borders of the city of Placerville, facilitated annually over a period of 10 years, or with a theme based on educational significance with a direct benefit, again, to its residents, businesses, cities, and or visitors. Being a co-sponsor. Very, very different. Let's be specific. Lead sponsor versus co-sponsor. In where the co-sponsor, for example, supports the Hangtown Christmas Parade, Wagon Train, or Golden History Days, or what we're known for as Frontier Days. Now, those are two different roles as we start to outline some of the policy piece in regards to costs as defined as indirect versus direct costs. Whereas if the lead sponsor versus the co-sponsor, what role the city will play, right? So here are some of the primary modifications, and I apologize because this is a lengthy document and it's also a lengthy presentation, but I want to be explicitly clear with some of the modifications that we're making, right? We want to properly manage the closures of impacting the historic downtown Main Street. We want to establish an annual permit deadline with the permit period or timeline. We want to expand the definitions and terminology to support proper communication and public education, and we want to inclusion of increased regulations as stipulated by El Dorado County Health Department and the temporary food permit. So more specifically, I think sometimes we all want to say the same things and we all have the best intentions, but then we don't necessarily, well, what's a historical event? What's a legacy event? What is a direct cost? What's an indirect cost? Well, who's paying for this? Well, at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that the city and its residents are making sure that they're providing, as part of our mission, amazing amenities, right? And stuff that the families can participate in. So I will belabor a little bit in regards to the regulation piece, only because we are a part of a county, and our county does have specific stipulations. Now, what the city doesn't want to do is we don't want to compound that, right? And so I'll be very transparent with you. When I first started this journey, and I'll talk about vendors very briefly, It's, okay, now we have vendors who have health permits, and then they have insurance, and do you have a city business license? Well, a lot of those things weren't requirements back in, 2 or 3 years ago. You go back last year, a lot of those requirements have shifted over time, primarily due to cost and/or inflation. Well, you take into account the fact that we want to know on our public right-of-ways or downtown, if you have a vendor, are they following health code? Are they serving things that are healthy to our community members and our residents and our visitors, right? Do they meet those stipulations? And so as I started to develop this and kind of compile stuff, me and office staff, our specialist who's been doing an amazing job, started to create rosters in regards to checklists. And we have X amount of vendors. Did they meet this requirement? Check. Did they meet this requirement? Check. Or do they have a health permit? Check. Well, as we started to work with the county and realized that the environmental management actually has a very similar process that, to be quite frank, is a lot more extensive and expensive, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We will utilize what they've done and how they've set those regulations and take that as a component to our permitting process. It would behoove us to add to what the county is already adding on top of that piece. A very, very basic and elementary example. There is a temporary food permit for a single event, and I don't want to get into the weeds in this, that is approximately $86. Well, as a food vendor, and I'm a small mom and pop shop, not only do I have to pay the $86, but now the city's asking me to do this, and then to do all these other pieces. Well, we need to ask for what we need. We need the insurance, we need the business license, we need to make sure you're compliant. Well, at that point, the request from us is making sure that you're compliant with county code, because they're the health regulators. They deal with the environment in regards to how to manage those pieces. There's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for all of us, but understanding the fact that the vendor management component in regards to the health and safety of the public isn't necessarily going to be regulated at this point with the food at the event by the city. We just want to ensure that the user and the vendor is compliant with county guidelines. That makes any sense. And I'll be available at the end for more questions if you want. But these are some of those primary modifications. As we start to move into some of the improvements and identify what those costs are, I really started to draw out what those definitions are. So direct costs, for example, fees or costs associated with the requirements to host events such as, but not limited to, marketing, city municipal services, police, fire, county health, Department of Community Services, other various city permitting fees are applicable. Indirect costs, fees or costs incurred by the city of Placerville for municipal services outside typical business operation. Costs may include administrative costs, permitting process, general liability insurance, police and fire services as needed, and other department permitting fees. A great example is our partnership with the Hangtown Parade. We are working with them in regards to some of the costs for the police. We're also working with them in regards to some of those indirect costs, where we are able to absorb it because it's part of our normal business hours, right? It's outside of those pieces where we're taking additional costs, where our partners who are sharing some of those costs don't necessarily have to pick up all of their indirect costs, but they may need to subsidize and support those direct cost pieces. Not directly, but potentially through sponsorships or vendor fees, which is another component that could be added in to the special event, as that's one of the primary improvements in regards to cost. All fees associated with each event as part of the process, and we'll get into what the permitting process is. We want to, as DCS and the city, provide a cost analysis prior to anyone planning an event. So there will be a provisionary permit, and we'll be able to sit down with the applicant and we'll say, hey, look, these are the things you want to do. You want to shut down this street. You want a rolling stop here. You want a bollard here. You want all these other things that the city's going to be able to support. Before they even start planning, we want to at least provide them an estimate. And I've done this enough, especially with rentals and facilities and other pieces. When you say, hey, you need to do an ABC license, and I'm an event planner, I'm like, well, maybe we don't need to have alcohol. Right? Maybe we need to adjust how many people we really think are going to come to this to get it to a more realistic and equitable balance, right? And so as part of that intake, which we'll get into, that provisional piece is to provide the event holder or the event coordinator, what we're calling applicant, clear understanding of what we're getting into as they go into this process. What we don't want to do is be unclear, and we don't want gray. We want to be as explicit as possible so both parties understand who is responsible for which cost and why we're responsible for each cost. Some of those improvements will be outlined within that process, and so our application is going to be due on a specific day of the calendar in January. But when they submit the application, they're only submitting just the form. They don't need to submit the whole application initially. Because in all fairness, I've planned a lot of events. I'm not gonna have all 30 of my vendors when I turn in the application. We want the core component of what your event's gonna be, so we can take that application, we can vet through it, we can get any potential street closures approved through city council, we can meet the requirements that the city needs, and then at that point, we return with the provisional permit, and then they go in, and then the event coordinator applicant will do their planning within their provisional permit, they get the requirements, they know how much they need to spend, they know what the requirements are, and then we'll set up a meeting to issue them the final permit once all of those Ts have been crossed and all of those Is have been dotted. Now, that preliminary special event permit definitely outlines all of those components, and that's a clear piece in regards to educating the public. We want to make sure that they understand fully what those requirements are. The filing period is to also help with some of our planning within our city budget, within our city resources, and throughout the calendar. Everyone knows downtown Placerville is hot. It's prime, it's like Boardwalk. Everybody wants to land there, everybody wants to have their event there. And that would be great if we had the resources to close it 12 times a year, but unfortunately, we don't. And it does impact different businesses differently. So we want to make sure that we're conscientious of how we manage those pieces. So this year, for the filing period, for example, if you look at the spreadsheet, it's basically all applications are due on January 31st, both for 25 and 26. This is what I'm deemed our catch-up year. It's my technical term, not ketchup like the thing you put on a hot dog, but like ketchup. That was a joke, by the way. Anyway, so that's their opportunity for 2025 to let us know, just the application, what's happening in 25 and 26. Subsequently, every year prior, I don't know if anybody's ever reserved a camping ground in Yosemite, right? Every year prior, you're just getting it, January, it's due. X amount in Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. Now, no matter when the application goes in, it is DCS responsibility to set up an intake meeting with you within 120 days of your event. That gives you 4 months. We won't wait that long, but that gives you 4 months, right? Does that make sense? And I'll stay for questions. This was my spreadsheet. I just wanted to show that I was very analytical in regards to identifying the specific date, the specific day on which application was due out until 2030. So those when our applications will be due, and these will be available to the public as we start to launch it, if it's adopted by City Council. The other parameter that we're putting in is limiting the amount of downtown closures. And based on some of the feedback that I not only received from the public through our due diligence, but some of the feedback that we received last time was adjusting how many were per quarter. 1 in Q1, 2 in Q2, 2 in Q3, and 3 in Q4. I will say this on the record. I would love for the parade and the tree lighting to be on the same day. I haven't experienced it myself yet, so I can't give you a formidable answer on whether or not it's going to work. All I do know at this point, it's a lot of planning for 2 large events. So I will have more information by the time we roll into December's city council meeting. But at this point, yes, it would be ideal, and that would be the goal, to combine both of those events on the same day. I think it would streamline a lot of things. But I do not want to bite off more than I can chew and make any promises that I cannot deliver. So I cannot make that decision at this point until I've had a chance to experience the events for myself. With that said, I'm sure there are a lot of questions, and I'm available if commissioners have any, and I'll also be available to the public during the meeting right now if they have any other questions. Thank you very much.
I have a question, Dennis, please. So the vendor supplies you with the application, you go over the application. After you approve that application, you have 120 days to get back to them.
Yeah, we're going
After you approve the application. If you don't approve it, you don't meet with them, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And to that point, and thank you for that, because I did leave one part out that you caught. I am saying, as the director, this is my recommendation in regards to X amount a year, because I know the resources that we have. A clear stipulation in regards to an appeal and an exception sits on the city manager's desk and then city council. So I am mapping out, based on the resources that we have, how many we can realistically do within a year, and I am being responsible with limiting it to 8. If there are exceptions or there are appeals, there's a process outlined within the guidelines that allows event holders, or what we're calling applicants, to avail themselves of that appeal process and exemption. Am I right all the time? Absolutely. Ask my wife. I'm perfect. But if on the off chance that there needs to be an exception, that's where I would defer to my supervisors, because I serve at the pleasure of the city manager, who serves at the pleasure of the city council. So whatever their directions are is well beyond my scope, and I will definitely serve to do that.
Okay. I think before we deliberate too much, do you guys have any other questions for staff on this particular topic?
No, I read through it pretty extensively. I mean, I like the direction it's going and the way we're getting it more solidified, for sure.
I like the idea of incorporating the county, letting them hold the responsibility instead of the city. I think that works for the health permit, even though it's a little bit more expensive than what we are. I think it's a good way to go.
Did you have any thoughts, Tony, or questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
There's a thought there.
So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to public comment on this agenda item, and if you could please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Is there any member of the public that would like to address the commission on this agenda item? Please come forward.
Ruth Michelson. So, Dennis, the content of this contract agreement, or this is also, you're recommending this to City Council as well, right? All right. Well, as an event planner, I have hands-on experience, 3 years doing Golden History Days, which is when the wagon train comes through town, and we celebrate the diversity of who was here at that time. And I'm going to tell you, I went through this line by line, and I hope you went through it line by line. This is going to kill events. This is a death warrant. I've already told Dennis that before, that I was going to be very critical of this. I know it's how this was developed was, it was boilerplate from a lot of different other communities, taking other pieces of other communities' contracts. There is no event planner who is going to be able to do this. You are just not going to have events that are not legacy events. The legacy events for which the city will help pay for, which even that now is becoming a little unclear about direct and indirect. I'm not even sure about those. But things like in the past, I mean, I could go line by line, but that'd be pretty boring. I do intend, when this goes to City Council, because I can't do it in 3 minutes, I will write a letter about line by line how this is not possible to be done. Things like insurance. In the 3 years that I've done Golden History Days, the city always covered insurance under the city umbrella. Things like barricades. It says in here, we're to contract for barricades. Are you kidding me? The city has always supplied the barricades. Look, we're a bunch of individuals. We're not a nonprofit. We're not a for-profit. We're not an event planner. We're just citizens who care and want to bring an event. We don't have a whole lot of money. We do fundraisers by having little events. But this whole thing, one of the things in here that says, no sane person would sign a contract saying, oh, and then if the expenses go up later, I'll cover those too. Absolutely not. We have a budget. We raise funds for that budget. There's no way I would sign a contract that's open-ended. Where am I going to get that money? And as it is for Golden History Days, and I've got some other people in the audience who are Golden History Days, money came out of our pockets as citizens. I mean, I know Placerville Antiques put in more than $500. I, as an individual, Placerville Art Gallery, put in more than $800. So not only am I giving hundreds and hundreds of hours of time, but I'm giving hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So this just is not a workable or reasonable document, and my time is up, so thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Greg Rezak, Placerville Antiques. Dennis, you have a deadline on the application and 120 days to get back. How do we apply for a Q1 or Q2 event when we don't even know if we're going to have it in 120 days? How does that work?
I'll let you take comments and answer.
Dennis, did you want to keep public comment open and then address at the end? Okay. Is there another member of the public that would like to come forward to offer public comment on this issue?
Hi, thank you. My name's Alan Ming. I'm a newly elected board member to Merchants on Main, and I'm playing a little catch-up here, so I apologize. But I wanted to let this committee know that commission, sorry, that one of the things that the Merchants on Main board will be voting on in December is establishing committees, and one of those committees would be an events committee. In addition to PR marketing and a community outreach efforts. So I think, we have an opportunity to kind of align what we're doing with what, this commission's trying to do. And I think we see a lot of the same challenges that Dennis has brought forward. So we look forward to working with you guys moving forward in the future. A couple comments I'd like to add is, unfortunately, I got here late last meeting. With the 2 closures per quarter, I'm not currently aware, and talking to others, of any closures that are scheduled for first quarter, or traditionally if there has been. So I thought about making the recommendation of either using that in the fourth quarter for Sugar Skull, because I think that was a very successful event, or using it as a floating closure, just depending on the applications that are received that particular year, as things may change, dynamics change over time, in keeping one kind of in the bank, if you will, for new requests, or if there's ever changes to schedules for whatever reason, conflicts with other events in the community, things of that nature. I was glad to hear on the cost, the estimating cost. I kind of second Ruth's comment that not having clear definition of what those costs do make it difficult to budget moving forward. So I was glad to hear Dennis comment on that. It'd be great to see, estimated costs tied to all the different scopes of closure, full closure, partial closure. We've even talked about doing things of leveraging, parking lots. But if we had beer gardens in the parking lots and not doing street closures, are there still costs for police or other traffic control, things of that nature? So real clear information on that would be very beneficial. Also, the opportunity, just speaking to Art Walk, it's every 3rd Saturday. If there's an opportunity to look at a blanket permit process for that, maybe a blanket cost for that, to kind of help out the Merchants on Main in sponsoring that event, that would be helpful. And then I also just wanted to add that should the board approve, which I think we will, the special events committee within Merchants on Main, their role will not only be sponsoring Merchants on Main events like Block Party and Oktoberfest, but working with other special events and those sponsors to help bring the merchants in as part of the process and bridge any gaps with this commission. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members that would like to come forward? Yes.
Hello, I'm Melinda Velasco with Sugar Skull Art Walk, and I like that you're allowing for there to be an appeal process, so I appreciate that. This year, the event was very successful, and the merchants, everybody that I heard was happy, the merchants and the people, and, I think it went all right. And that those new provisions from the county around, we prepare food and, give it away freely, and we had to go through the whole licensing process. I think we were the first event that had to do it. And I think we were sort of like the guinea pig on a number of levels. And I feel like we pulled it off. So I'm really proud of our team. And I just want to acknowledge that, we put a lot of effort into trying to make sure everything was correct. So, yeah, so thanks for the appeal process that you guys are suggesting. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to offer public comment that hasn't spoken already? Okay. And seeing none, we're going to go ahead and close public comment. And then Dennis, you said there was a couple of opportunities to address the public's
I'd be happy
questions.
to respond to that. I will start with Mr. Gregg in regards to the 120 days. So basically, what we're hoping is the applications will come in January, and I'll pick a date. Let's say April 1st, or probably not April 1st. That might not work, but like June 1st, right? And so our goal is to meet with him not 120 days after his application, but 120 days prior to his event date. So then that gives us 4 weeks to work together to make sure that we're both on the same page, right? And so if it's on, April 1st or whenever your event is, you're submitting the application in January, then your date, I'm gonna go, okay, 120 days before that date. We're gonna make sure. That's worst case scenario. We will meet with you as soon as absolutely possible once city council approves it, right? And so once we go through those pieces and we approve it and we go through there, we're just saying 120 days just as like a deadline for us. We're saying at least bare minimum, because again, with our resources and what we're doing, there are a few shortfalls in our budget. We are limited on our staff. We're doing the best that we can, but we want to make sure that I've set a deadline and saying I'm meeting with you at least 120 days before your event to ensure everything that's happening that needs to happen happens. I hope that makes sense around that.
Excuse me, Dennis. The way I understood the question was the application's January 31st, and you want to have an event in March. How do you get that 120 days?
We'll exceed it. We'll get there as soon as we can. That's why we're actually applying. That's why we're hoping this year for 2025. That's the caveat, right? Because if you look at where the dates fall, and I'm trying to find the slide, so I apologize. We're in a tricky year. Once we get to 26 and 27, we'll kind of know, especially for the events that are coming, Wagon Train or Golden History, however, we'll kind of know those pieces, so we'll kind of be set. This year is going to be a little tricky, right? 2026, we'll be fine. 120 days, no problem. First year, little gray. Make sense? Sorry. And then as part of both, I think, Melinda and Ruth's comments around cost and like the health permit, I actually believe that to be the case. The county's regulation is fairly new and it is extensive. It is very, very pricey. So let's also be clear that none of these components are built on a revenue stream. So we're not making revenue. We're not trying to gain any net around our finances. What the city's trying to do is find the most fiscally responsible way to subsidize those co-events and to subsidize those legacy events, right? Does that make sense? I'll use Fishing Derby as a great example. Do we subsidize that? Absolutely. Are we still going out to get sponsorships? We need to, right? And so the conversation with our staff is, well, how much do you need to be able to make sure you've got all the hooks and your lines and all these other pieces? We have X amount of budget. So my staff says to me, I need $2,000. Great. How much money are we going to raise? $2,000. Right? Because we're still going to have to expend it, right? It's not like a checking account. There's a revenue source, and I'm not trying to get into city budget, but there's a revenue source and there's an expenditure source. So we're still looking for the revenue. We're still looking for sponsorships. Hometown Holidays, great example. Our committee so far, and I think we'll get an update later, has done an excellent job. The tree downtown and the lighting and the decorations, excess of $10,000. Now, are we budgeting for it? We have to. We have to make sure that we're budgeting for it, but that's not saying that we're not going to go out and get those sponsorships or eventually have to charge vendor fees or have to do some other recompense in regards to making sure that there's a net zero. So I also want to be clear, I have not been here long enough to truly understand the nuances within our budget. So where I'm reading it and I'm saying, and I see, oh, 2 or 3 hours here, 2 or 3 hours there, I'll be very frank with you. In some cases, it's 6 or 7 hours here and 6 or 7 hours there. And where if we have estimated previously for 17 hours, the city's spending up to 32 hours of manpower, not just within the overtime piece. I'm talking about the general expense around making sure that the ballers are out and all those other pieces. So it's not like we're trying to gouge anyone, or I know it's hard. And I know it's very difficult, especially for a lot of the nonprofits and the mom and pop shops. I'm just trying to be as fiduciary as I can to make sure that it's as responsible as it is. Will we, over the first year, be able to work with each organizer? Absolutely. And yes, will the appeal process be a part of that component? Yes. But I do want to be clear that we all need to take a hard look at the calendar as a whole, and we all need to take a hard look at other locations as a whole, in where we're not taxing just downtown, and we're not just taxing the last quarter of the year, in where, yes, everyone does want to be in December, but it rains in January too. It's cold in February as well. And it's not going to rain on the tree lighting event this year, right? I'm just saying there are going to be nuances around those pieces, so we all just need to take a little bit of a step back and work together and collaborate to ensure that our history and our traditions are sustainable. We want to be responsible, equitable, and sustainable. That's the goal.
Thank you.
So I think that the new board member for Emergency Maine brings up a good point. If we're allocating one closure for Q1 and there is no closures in Q1, we get applications, they come in, there's nothing in Q1. Are we just going to cut that one out and call it 7? Or are we going to have, I mean, I know we want to get away from 4 in Q4. I know that's the goal. We're not, I mean, it sounds to me like that's what everybody wants. 0 in Q1, 4 in Q4. We know that's not feasible. But
I don't agree, but
you
yeah,
don't think
no,
so?
I don't. I actually feel that the fourth quarter, I was at the Sugar Skull event. I thought it was amazing. There was like 2,000 people, perhaps more. And I feel like an event that shows that much support almost demands an opportunity for an application spot to be available in the fourth quarter, because the city's
So what do you disagree
events,
with?
I think that the fourth quarter needs a fourth number. I think that.
Right, that's exactly what
yeah.
I was saying.
Oh, okay, I thought you were saying not, it's
No,
not
I'm
feasible.
saying that's,
Oh,
no,
okay,
that's
I
what.
apologize.
They're looking for
I
4 in the
apologize.
4th, 0 in the
Okay.
1st. So I'm
Yes, I agree then. If
That's-
you're proposing 4 in the
I'm not
fourth.
proposing anything, I'm saying.
okay. My
That's what it seems to be like the overwhelming.
misunderstood.
Feedback is, as there is none in Q1, and we do have SSAW popping up that has grown in both its support and the way people are coming forward and speaking up, saying that they really enjoy the event. So the document is written now as 1 in Q1, 3 in Q4, but if there is no applications for Q1, and somebody decides they want to take that opportunity to utilize it, that's what we're looking at here. So what realistically do we have in Q1 for closures on Main? Does anybody know of anything?
For full street closures, is there any documented full street closures in the first quarter?
Off the top of my head, no, I don't know.
Okay,
So I think we need to look at that when proposing this. If we're allocating one of the 8 closures in Q1 when we know historically there's been 0.
Okay.
I think that's a wasted opportunity for a closure to allocate it to Q1 where we don't have any. So that makes a lot of sense.
okay. So, okay, then I agree. My apologies. So I did go through this like sentence by sentence, so I have a lot to say on this. So is this the time to go through it if we need to, page by page? So I have every intention of doing that. So,
If you want to hit the highlights and then hand me your notes after, just hit the top.
okay, so
notes.
definitely I agree. So I guess my question is do we need to make a motion on every adjustment, or can we go through collectively page by page and then?
This is just a received report. This is not actionable. It's just a receive.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was something we had to vote on for action item, or if it's just
We took
agree.
those actions last month, and then we kind of
Okay.
compiled it together. Any other revisions will most likely happen between now and city council, and then city council will have the final approval in regards to that.
Okay.
So right now.
So this is
any
just
other-
recommended,
Yep,
okay.
recommendations and
Perfect.
dialogue.
So I would agree to recommend 0 in first quarter, and then I guess that the paperwork allowed for adjustments to be made at the discretion of the Director of Community Services and possibly City Council. So if there is something that happens to arise in first quarter, then those responsible for making that decision could add it, depending on, it also made exceptions for emergency situations. So I would agree changing first quarter to 0 and fourth quarter to have 4.
May I?
Yeah.
Tony brought up a good idea. I would leave the 1 in first quarter and call it a floating. That way it can float to wherever it needs to be. Could be third quarter, we add 1. Doesn't have to be fourth quarter. Your thought?
Right, and we'll know in January through the application process where that would float to immediately. It's not like it would be a question of when and where and who's going to do it. If it's not in and there's nothing in, if there's an additional one in Q2 or Q3, I mean, we could use it at that time. I mean, that would make sense.
With regards to the,
So based on, sorry, Tony.
Go ahead.
So based on the way it's designed now, if we have X amount of resources allocated, money, finances, and staff, right? And so that's kind of the way it's designed in regards to that appeal and exception process, to where even if we went over 9, right, where the city manager would say, hey, look, here's, we have a rolling procession, or there's a large event for the state, let's go ahead and make sure that in any one of these quarters, we're going to add an extra one. I think that's already kind of built into that piece. I think fiscally, then absolutely, but we would still utilize that exception and appeal process, right? I wouldn't want to make that decision unilaterally, because I don't think that it would be equitable, right? So then I'm like, okay, all of a sudden, hey, X, Y, and Z, we didn't do one in Q1, so I'm going to add another one to Q2. I don't think that's fair to the public, and I don't think that's fair to our finances, and that's kind of why we built in that caveat of the exception and the appeal to make it equitable. And so following those guidelines to ensure that 8 a year within those quarters are kind of where we're at to manage our money responsibly. The other point is, and I say this with the nicest tone possible, if I'm saving money and I'm not doing one in Q1, and I'm saving money not doing one in Q1. Does that make sense? And so if there are no exceptions and there are no appeals, then at the end of the day, I want to keep a 0 balance as clearly as possible, because not only do I have a fiduciary responsibility to special events, but we also oversee multiple divisions throughout the city. Playgrounds, turf, all those other pieces, right? And so I'm not saying I'm going to steal from Peter to pay Paul, but right now, Paul been broke, and we ain't helping Peter out.
So am I interpreting that the suggestion of the floating number makes it more challenging when it comes to finances and calculations?
Yeah,
Is-
that's correct.
is that
That's
what
why
I'm
the
hearing?
appeal
Okay.
process is there, and then the city manager or staff will be able to determine on whether or not we could allow for our fourth one in Q4 if we don't have one in Q1.
Yeah, so that's already built into the existing.
Yeah, correct. That's correct.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Tony.
oh, that's okay. I just think that and I'll say again, I'm also a merchant as well. And I think the scary part for the merchants in Q4 was that the 2 events that the dates never changed, Halloween and Sugar Skull, as far as those are always going to be. The scary parts were this year, Sugar Skull's on a Saturday, and I was like, oh, scary. Totally, my thought process, and I was completely wrong. I stand completely corrected. It was great. I didn't notice much. Halloween is going to be on a Saturday next year, or 2 years from now. It's going to be on a Friday. But that's only 2 times. And then the rest of the years, these events are going to be on a Monday or on a Tuesday or Wednesday. So having 4 closures in Q4 is only scary when they land on a weekend in that sense. But that's only once out of 6 years or whatever, depending on when it was a leap year. So I think with the appeal process, that's great, but I think that having 4 in Q4 is also an option that's not as scary as it may seem when we just had one on the weekend, and in 2 years, Halloween will be on a Saturday as well. But does that make sense what I'm saying? There,
So,
it's not
yes.
like, I mean, the bigger picture of it is that it's gonna be fine if that happens.
So I like the idea of doing 4 in the fourth quarter because there's some things that, again, the dates you just can't move. So I do agree there. And then also, I don't think it's reasonable to automatically assume that the last man standing that doesn't fit into the automatic 3 has to automatically go through the appeals process, which is what I'm hearing. Is that, because we got Halloween, we got 2 Christmas events, that takes up the 3 right away. So that means the 4th person, for example, let's say Sugar School would like to apply for that spot, they're now automatically going to have to go through the appeal process, and that doesn't seem reasonable to me. So my recommendation is 0 in the first quarter and 4 in the last quarter.
Well, I think that the purpose of having those 3 is because we deem those as legacy events. So the 4th is not a legacy event. That's why it would be not automatically in there. It would be have to go through the appeal process and
So the people, so let's say Sugar Skull landed in July. It doesn't, but let's say, for example, it landed in July. There wouldn't be an appeal process because there would be 2 spots available for them to apply. So if they want to do it in the fourth quarter, because that's when it lands, they now have no choice but to go through appeals process. And I think that is an excessive and unequal playing field for the applicant based on a calendar date.
that makes sense. However, when we're talking about legacy events, I mean, there's no guarantee that the Sugar Skull event will even be held next year. So we're talking about making an exception for something that is unknown. So based on the way that is run, I mean, it's gained support through the years for sure, but that could not be an event next year. They could decide they don't want to do it, and so I mean, it'd be hard for us to make it okay. They're getting automatically in when we don't even know if it's not a legacy event. It's based on volunteers that who knows if they're even going to live in the community next year. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? So it's hard to make that solidified, and it's saying it's unfair when that's not a legacy event that is guaranteed to happen every year with this group.
Except the city would be overtaking the 3 spots that are available. So to me, it just doesn't create an even playing field for a public applicant to apply for that last quarter. For, what did I say?
For Q4?
For 2-4?
For Q4.
For Q4, oh, yes. I just don't see that as being equitable, because it automatically does that, whether it's
Right, but
Sugar
would you-
Skull or someone else.
But would you be okay with them not giving the Christmas parade because of SSAW application?
I
That would
think-
be the even
yeah,
playing
yeah,
field.
I don't think that's an even playing field, because the city, like, there's legacy events that are already
Right.
established.
Exactly.
So if the legacy events take up all the 3 spots that are made available, there's no opportunity for members of the public, whether it's Sugar Skull or someone else, to apply for the fourth quarter.
Well, that's what the appeal process is for.
Unless the parade and the tree lighting are combined on Black Friday.
Or if Sugar Skull moves the location to, say, a park. Doesn't have to be on Main Street.
True.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of variables and what-ifs, but I don't like to me, it just seems unequitable, because it automatically puts them through the appeals process, whereas, an event like Ladies' Night Out, they have the opportunity to move into different quarters, which wouldn't automatically force them to go through the appeals process. It doesn't seem equitable to me, period. So I stand my position on it. If it's something we need to take a vote on, that's fine. But my position is, I think that there should be that extra spot available so that there is an opportunity for someone to apply.
But
That would be no events in the first quarter, 2 events in 2, 2 events in 3, and 4 in Q4.
That would be my recommendation. Is that,
Yeah,
but if
I'm
we're in
just taking notes.
disagreement, do we need to take a vote on it,
I
or?
think it's just a recommendation.
Just feedback.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's my so that's my recommendation. Okay, going through on page 3, the appeals process. Let's see, second sentence. Upon denial of the special event permit application form, the applicant shall have 3 business days to submit a written appeal. But then the city staff had 10 days to get back to the applicant. My recommendation is to change that the applicant would have 10 business days, because I think with most things with the appeals process for the city, I believe it is closer to a 10-day. I think 10 and 10.
10.
It seems, 10 business days, yeah. I think that would seem more reasonable to have a fair opportunity. If we get 10 days to respond, an applicant should be able to have 10 days as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so, let me take a look here. The exceptions, additional fees may be applied for an appeal, that paragraph, do we know what those fees are? The appeals process, so typically, you
that
know,
on
if like
page 3?
yeah, on page 3, do we know what the appeal fee is? Because like with planning commission and stuff, there's typically like a set price.
I did not, I purposely did not include fees for 2 reasons. I didn't want to, I'm already blowing my mind and people's mind with the amount of changes that I'm making, and I want to make sure that it's accurate and work with our internal departments to make sure that they've got legitimate, no, I don't want to say legitimate, but like feasible and understanding numbers, right? And so are we talking about loaded costs? Are we talking about direct hourly costs? And so the fee schedule will have to take part of a different process.
Okay, so is it something that that language would need to be taken out for now and then added later, like? okay,
Most
we're gonna
likely
add-
there will be applicable fees. We just haven't established a lot of those pieces yet.
Okay,
Because
so,
to put together, and it just to help out with some of
Right.
that definition, right? And so if we are having them as part of that process, we've got 10 days, then that staff that's not, you know, kind of assigned to something, and we're allocating resources to be able to process it. So I want to be responsible and respectful that we are doing a lot of changes and there's a lot of significant barriers that we're putting here. I don't want to convolute the situation, right? Compounding it.
yeah, I guess my question is if we don't have it ready now, does that sentence need to be taken out for now and something added later?
It would be my recommendation to keep it in there.
Okay, that was just my question, because I think, what was the comment? Let me take a look here. We don't want to be unclear, was a statement you made earlier. So I think for me, it's like, now's the time to be clear, so I just want to make sure we have things very narrowed down for the public going forward. Okay, let me take a look. Okay, page 7. My question for the parade event requests is does that fall under the 60-day or the one year in advance application?
Which sentence are you alluding to?
So page 7, the very last paragraph, parade event requests is the main heading there. So I guess my question was, is that something that requires a 60-day advance request, or is that the 1 year in advance application? I
They
wasn't
would all
sure
be
where it
doing
would.
this, they would all be due on the same day. Yeah.
Okay, the 1 year in advance. Okay.
And again, there are nuances to it in regards to the exception, right? There have been times, recent times in regards to last-minute processions and last-minute, parade. I use the word procession versus parade, because there's a difference between a celebration of life versus a homecoming. Homecoming could be probably planned well in advance. And so those are kind of those nuances that the staff would definitely take into account with.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then taking a look here, I just want to make sure I go through my notes. As far as the comments earlier too about the insurance being a challenge, I want to say that is one thing I did speak directly to some of the organizers with Sugar Skull, and I believe they actually pulled their own private insurance that was in harmony with city standards. So it can be done, including the health permits. As stated earlier, they were kind of the guinea pigs, and I think they did a very, very good job with some of the challenges they were up against, but they were able to do it and work with the funding requirements as well. So it can be done even if it is challenging, so I did want to state that also for the record. Page 12, let me just double check my notes here. Page 12, applicant's rights and appeal process. This particular paragraph didn't quite make sense to me, and I wasn't sure if it was labeled correctly. Applicant's rights and appeal process. The deposit will be returned to the applicant provided applicant has provided city with at least 15 days prior notice of cancellation of the event. If the applicant cancels the event with less than 15 days of notice, the community service specialist of the scheduled event, the applicant may forfeit the deposit and said deposit will be retained by the city. So this to me kind of implied more, is it the applicant's rights to cancel? Is that what this specific paragraph should have?
It implies that if the applicant chooses to cancel the event 15 days prior to the event date, they're cool. If they don't, they lose their money, application money.
Okay,
So it works in their favor, actually.
okay. So maybe
Yeah,
we could,
Most situations in policies is either like a 30 or even a 45-day notice in regards to cancellation. This was a kind way for us to say, we know these events are happening on a regular basis. We're doing our best. We know you're investing your time and money. The city's investing their time and money. But on the off chance an emergency does happen, just so you know, that 15-day period is a very soft date.
yes. So maybe we could just add the language applicant's right to cancel and appeal process. And
You want me to, I can reword it.
yeah, because it didn't seem like an appeal, and that's why I was like, maybe maybe it's just the applicant's right to cancel. And then my other question, because of the, when it's their applicant's right, is there a state law that says they have the 15 days, or can that be extended to 30 days? Because I know that I think it was the Oktoberfest that was canceled with I think it was maybe 3 weeks' notice, if I have the timing correct, seemed to cause a huge impact. So I wondered if there was a set standard, or if that 15 days could be extended to 30 days. I guess that was my question on that in particular.
I'm not an expert on state law, so I wouldn't be able to reference the context around the timeline. The reason we developed the 15 days because we felt it was, responsible for us as facilitators of events to, be supportive of our community events. I would hate for a historical event or cultural event such as Sugar Skull, to something happen and then they can't, deal with it. I don't want to say, hey, 30 days before, you're not going to get some of your money back. I'd rather do it at least 15 days.
Okay.
It's just, I think it's responsible as civic leaders to be understanding. Now, it could change. Again, these will all be presented to city council as well. This is my recommendation.
Okay.
This is a city program, not a state. So there's nothing holds the city accountable, nor the vendor. So the city has a right to go 45, 60, 90, or 15.
Okay. So I think it would be, maybe the paragraph just needs to be changed to applicant's right to cancel, since it's not addressing the appeal process. I think that was more at the beginning of the document.
Thank you.
Okay, and let me continue here forward. Okay, and then I guess my question for staff then at this point would be, let me take a look.
I had one.
Did you have a question? Yes, go ahead.
I believe a schematic needs to be added to that, Dennis, to the application, so they understand what's going on, so they can mark up all the barriers that need, the police officers, the garbage cans, and such.
Thank you for that.
Let's see. I think it was part of the staff report. I think it was page 2. Staff is recommending the following revisions to the special events process. Is this something we need to vote on or not particularly? Because
No.
you said that was
this is
addressed
just part
before.
of the received with file report.
Okay. I think that is all the main ones that stood out to me, unless there's anybody else that wanted to provide feedback or any adjustments or recommendations for city council to make the final decisions.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
just to address the costs, organizers' costs, going back to what Ruth had mentioned too. With my experience with some of the events and my experience also being with concert promoters and whatnot, if I feel if it's a for-profit event, that if the organizer is going to make money, literally a profit, I don't see any problem with them having to foot the bill for everything. However, if it's a cultural event like Sugar Skull or Golden History Days, I think the city should have a little bit more skin in the game with regards to paying for the costs of the barriers and some of the costs of the police, as traditionally we've done. Because truth is, yeah, if you don't know if there's going to be additional costs and additional things that come up, you can't plan for that. Then you don't know how much you're gonna, like, oh my God, now I owe $3,000 for my event and I made negative $20,000 on my event or whatever. That would just be my recommendation, that we look at that, because if you do a keyword search on the PDF of organizer, there's a lot. And you go through, you're like, organizer is responsible, boom, 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 boom. And I get that. If I was coming into Main Street and saying, hey, I want to do Oktoberfest, and I'm going to have all the stuff, and I'm going to make 25 grand in profit that night, and then I complain about having to pay for barriers, that's crazy. But if we're bringing something to the community that we all benefit from, and increasing, hopefully, business and marketing of Main Street, like Golden History or Sugar Skull, I think we should at least look at not passing all that cost onto that organizer, because unless I'm not correct, but I don't think the Sugar Skull and Golden History events like that are money makers at all, and they can be money makers for the merchants if it's done right, or if the merchant is open to being open on that evening. And such, I think we should encourage some of the merchants to also, help out with some of those as well, if they can, and that's where the organizer will talk to the merchants as a sponsor and whatnot in that thing. But that's just my 2 cents there, to kind of go along with. It does seem kind of nuts, with all due respect, of the amount of costs that somebody would have to deal with to put on this event. It would probably just not happen.
So I think the challenge, though, and as ideal as that would be, the challenge is it's the city council's decision where this was triggered. For example, Sugar Skull and Ladies Night Out, they came to city council and it was presented on the same night that they wanted to do full street closures, and it was the mayor who said, if we support your full street closures, can you pay for it? And that's when one of the applicants said, if we have to pay for it, we will, but if we have to pay for it, everybody should. And that's what's creating this process. So it was asked up front when the nonprofit and a for-profit came forward. They were equally presented with the same challenge of covering the costs of the street closures. So if the city going forward wants to make an adjustment on that, that's at their discretion, but it was them who triggered that and put the burden on the applicants to cover the costs of the street closures. So that is where I think there's going to be some more information coming forward. I know for myself, I'll be giving my own separate opinion and public comment when this does go to city council, because there are very, very strategic funding strategies that are in place that actually Dennis did the research very thoroughly for, where there's some other neighboring cities who have figured out how to self-fund their street closures. And I think one of the packets that Dennis was able to identify revealed that one of our nearby towns has figured out their funding so successfully through their merchants, which for us in City of Placerville, I believe would be Merchants on Main. They created a partnership program with the city and their business owners. And the business owners figured out how to fund almost $170,000 into an account strictly for funding street closures, which would actually help relieve a lot of the burden on individual applicants. So I think there is opportunity for that, but this was triggered by the mayor at the time, because I
I'm
was
aware
there
of
for that event.
But it was
So-
also kind of thrown, it was like, whoa, all of a sudden everything's changing.
Yes, and
I could
impressively.
speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's advantageous for us to take a look at it as representatives of the city that we are, right? So as a civic leader myself and as commissioners, right, these are decisions that we're making as civic leaders as a whole, and the nonpartisan component to that piece is, yes, we don't identify the city as it is the city is making the decision. We are supporting that decision as a recommendation as the commissioners, as civic leaders ourselves. And so we have to take a look at it holistically around what is the best, most responsible path of action for us to take for our residents, not just the business owners. Yes, we want to be understanding, not just the schools and not just our residents, but everybody holistically, and taking a look at where we are with our resources and the budget as a whole. Could we have done this prior to inflation? Probably different. Absolutely. Could we have done this differently as years passed with different organizations with more resources? Absolutely. If we had sponsorships in excess of $1 million, we probably wouldn't be in this predicament, right? And so we would be to a certain point where a lot of the nuances that we're outlining here wouldn't even necessarily be an issue, right? But understanding that we do have limited resources, that we want to be able to help everybody equitably as much as possible, City Council is making a conscious choice to try and prioritize those pieces that we know the residents hold true to, identifying legacy events, identifying historical events, identifying cultural events. And at no way did we circumvent the existing policy that's there in regards to nonprofits, for-profits, to Tony's point around other organizations or agencies that want to come in, and that's fine. You definitely want to throw a concert that's going to net $40,000, absolutely. But that cost should not be incurred on Joe resident or Jane resident, right? Now, are there other cultural things that we're wanting to identify? The ultimate goal is to say, all right, these are the things that we're prioritizing. These are legacy events. These are historic events. This is how much the city is able to, not that they don't want to, that we're able to invest in. And this is how much the money that we'd love to, but we really can't at this point. And so at the end of the day, understanding that piece of being a civic leader ourselves, making sure that these are the decisions, we may not always agree, but as long as we're in clear understanding of where we're at, that's the course that we want to be able to follow. Does that make sense? And so we have a responsibility to the residents to be fiscally able to manage a zero balance budget. And we do not want to work in the deficit because that's not going to help everybody in the long term. So unless there's anything else, I would recommend we could either continue to deliberate or we can make a motion to move on to the next agenda item.
Yep, I think we've covered it thoroughly. Thank you. Okay, so that's going to close the 7.3. We're going to move forward to 7.4, 2025 Youth NFL Flag Football Season Fee Increase.
All right, good evening. Tonight, we have before you a recommendation to increase our youth flag football fees. As you all know, back on January of this year, minimum wage increased by 50 cents to $16 per hour. So, and at that time, we said we would bring individual items back to the commission and council when the timing was right. So here we are, even though it happened in January, flag football is, everything was already going at that point. So now we're catching up. So in addition to the minimum wage going up, also the cost of jerseys will be increasing. All of these increases will have a financial impact to the city's youth NFL flag football program. And in addition to those costs, I already said that. Sorry, hang on, let me back up here. So in addition to the cost of the jerseys And flags have also increased $5 per player from $25 to $30 per player. So we got minimum wage, we got uniforms. So obviously, these increases are going to have a financial impact on the Recreation Division's annual operating budget for the 24-25 fiscal year. And to offset the additional expenditures in the Youth NFL Flag Football League, staff is recommending a fee increase effective, say, January 1st, but it's really just effective when we start taking signups for the next league. An increase of $8 from $179 to $187 per player. That's for the early bird fee, and then the regular fee would be from $189 to $197. And that's for any player who signs up after the early bird registration fee. So as you will see on, sorry, it doesn't have a page number. It's page 2, I guess. On page 2, at the top, there is a chart. It shows that the projected costs for part-time personnel and uniforms is $1,345. And if we increase the fees by $8, you'll see at the next chart below that our additional revenue that we will bring in with that $8 increase is $1,368. So we do cover, with that increase, we do project to cover our additional expenses for that program. So with these recommended fees in place, our youth NFL flag football program will likely remain self-supporting, assuming our participation levels remain consistent. If I was going to predict it tonight, I would say that we're probably going to continue to grow because it's a fairly new program. So I don't think, I think the consistent, I think we'll probably be above consistent and we'll probably be continuing to grow. So, so with that, tonight, staff is looking for the commission's support to direct staff to take this proposal to the city council to increase the youth NFL flag football league by $8 per player. So with that, So with that, be happy to answer any questions.
You guys have any questions for?
I don't have any questions. I mean, this makes sense. We've been talking about it. I'll go ahead and make a motion to.
Do we need to open it to public comment first? Okay.
Is there any, I thought everybody left.
Is there any member of the public that would like to address this topic? Okay, and seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment, and then we can move forward with the motions.
All right, I make a motion to support raising it by eight. Is it $8?
Yeah.
$8.
I second. Matt, just out of curiosity, how many teams do we have?
On the first page there, it shows that we had 23 teams last season. We had 22 the year before that. So this is kind of based on still the 23 teams.
Got it.
But hopefully it'll continue to grow, so.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to add too, just to mention, the $8, once it goes to the finance director or assistant city manager, I mean, it could change slightly, but like when he puts his financial numbers on it, but
Okay.
it'll probably.
Would it be easier if we did a motion to just say increase NFL flag football registration fees as recommended by staff?
Well, I think we have a motion and a second already on the table, so if that was the thing.
Okay, I wasn't sure with the $8 if it was.
Oh, no, I was just letting you
That's
guys
what I was
know. I mean,
wondering.
there's always that
That's what you
caveat that
meant.
it could be
Okay.
$750, it could be
'Cause I wasn't sure,
$825. I mean,
like-
I think the motion was for 8, so we can go with that.
Okay, so that's fine. Okay, so then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Any opposed? Okay, seeing none.
thank you.
Motion passes. All right, and we'll move forward with 8. Division updates. 8.1, recreation update. We have none. Parks update. Oh,
We actually,
oh, I'm sorry, did I miss? Oh, I apologize, okay. Parks update, 8.2, we have none. 8.3, facilities update, we have none. And then we'll move forward to 8.4, special events update. And we'll start with trick or treat on Main recap. Mr. Tony.
It was great. I think we had about the same turnout as we had last year. This year we didn't because of the bounce house person that I had hired did not have insurance, and I was like, oh my goodness. And so when we kind of called them onto the carpet on that and said, do you have insurance? They said no. And then we all looked in to see how much that would cost us for insurance, and it was about 4 times the amount of renting the bounce houses. And I think the city has an exclusion for bounce houses, and as it turns out, my insurance policy has an exclusion for bounce houses too. But I could get an additional insurance policy that was $1,500, and honestly, nobody noticed. So I didn't hear one single complaint about anybody.
I thought it was awesome. I think
It was
we saw
awesome.
each other
Yes, we
down
did,
there.
yeah.
It was,
Great.
it was a wonderful
It was really
event.
good. The only
Very
thing I
happy.
want to do going forward, if I am honored and blessed to still be a co-sponsor, is I really do want to work with the 2030 Club. I want to be on the same page with them with regards to the Halloween, the costume contest and whatnot, because it feels like it's just a whole separate little thing that they do on their own. But other than that, it was a great night. I gave away, I think, about $1,200 worth of candy myself, which is insane. But we give handfuls, and we're the toys candy store, so you know. But it was great. So thanks for the city for working with me. You guys were great. Julie was awesome, talking to you all the time, and I think everybody really had a really fun time. And I accidentally ordered 10 cases of custom vampire teeth, so if anybody needs any, just
Put
let
that in
me
the
know.
giveaway for next year.
Yeah.
You can pass
Vampire
them
teeth,
out.
yeah.
Yeah.
I accidentally ordered 10 cases.
Kids love them.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Could I just add one thing? I just wanted to add too that, because I know, Tony, you're so busy down there, you probably don't get an opportunity to make it up here, but this room is very busy on Halloween also with the Placerville Lions Club and their carnival that they run here. So I just want to thank
And it
them
was
for that.
awesome as well. That's where I saw
Yeah,
you.
she was, yeah.
And we had an amazing time. It was organized.
balloon
very
guy's
well.
great.
It was extremely entertaining. I loved everything about it.
So it is very
I would
busy. It
say
is very busy in here.
Maybe a little extra advertising, because I can't remember where I had heard it. I think I had heard it from staff that there was going to be something going on in here, but I don't recall seeing it in the advertisements. So my only recommendation maybe going forward is maybe add that there is a carnival in here, because I only knew about it because I had heard someone say it, that there was.
It always has been on the flyer in the past. If it wasn't this year, we'll make sure we get it on there next.
Yeah, but I thought it was
It always has been on there.
awesome. It was awesome. The kids had an amazing time in here, and it was great seeing you as well. It was wonderful.
I only advertised the carnival on Main.
Oh, microphone, yeah.
I only advertised the carnival, just as carnival on Main.
Yeah, so-
Totally missed this whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've always seen them as part of the event. They're just further up the road.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
My bad. Very selfish of me.
It's all good. It was wonderful, yeah. Thank you for the recap on that. And then hometown holidays, Mr. Potter?
It's been an experience. I was asked to come and chair this committee in August. So we had almost 4 months to get this together, and amazingly, we've had a great committee and support of Julie and Dennis. It's couldn't have done it without you guys. So the tree, it was an experience for me to go out there and pick a tree with Pete, SPI, and with Doug Verkamp, 2 great guys. Salt of the earth, and a good man. So we got the tree up, and I believe it's decorated and has lights on it. Eileen, we call it, but it's okay. What's that? She's still yeah, she's Eileen. So where we are, we need volunteers is what we need. So I think we have, correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, I think we have 16 volunteers at this point. And I would like to solicit the commission to be out there volunteering, if you would, please. We can use your help. Besides that, everything is ready to go. As long as you, it's the 29th. We have flyers. If we can give the commission some flyers before they leave, that'd be great. We had posters printed up as well.
They're looking good on me.
Yeah, so 29th. November.
Day
yes.
after Thanksgiving.
Day after Thanksgiving. Oh, okay.
Well, cancel your plans.
Send somebody in your behalf, please.
Perfect. So, couple things on that is, one, if you know what specifically you're looking for volunteers and what specific times. I did speak to Miss Quintana, that's part of your committee as well, and she was telling me this week about some of the different timeframes that they were needing volunteers. So we're going to be looking to ideally be part of the cleanup crew after 8 p.m. with our Girl Scout troop, is what we.
You're a
Yeah,
sweetheart.
so what we were looking to do, but
That's what we need.
yeah, so I do think it would be helpful if you need more is I would recommend maybe posting on El Dorado County chat saying this is the event, we need volunteers for this time frame for X reason and this time frame for X reason. There's like over, 30,000
So
people, members in that, so it's your choice, but
Yep.
it's good marketing if you wanted people to reach out or say we're looking for other organizations or nonprofits to volunteer.
Thank you.
Pastor Al did that too, didn't he?
Thank you.
He put out a,
I believe he did. Yeah, I think we're going to have more volunteers showing up, believe it or not. But what I have, what the list is 16. That's what I'm going for. Not that we can't manage cleaning up the streets. We just need people. We're meeting here at 2:30 to give people direction what they're doing. So I don't have those times who's going to be doing what.
Okay,
That day it's going to be distributed at that point in time, I understand.
okay.
So we just need bodies.
What about students seeking community service hours?
Yep, we can do that as well. I approached Ponderosa High School. I've approached El Dorado only because my son goes there. And we have the jazz band from Pondo playing 25 students for about 45 minutes. So we have a two-man band that's playing. We have the carolers. They're going to be there. We have Norm Hammond, which is going to be the DJ. We have Wendy's. It's going to be the ceremony. What else? I think.
Supervisor Thomas.
Oh, Supervisor Thomas. Thank you so much. Thank you. So yeah, we have. Yeah, go ahead.
So I know that the Cadet Corps of Union Mine is looking for specific community service hours right now before December. So we could maybe leverage the Cadet Corps.
That sounds like an excellent idea. Do you have their contact information?
And my daughter's a member.
Oh, that's how we know. Boom,
Okay.
there we go.
you guys know each other?
We can talk, or can't we? We can get that done.
It's in Girl Scouts.
That'd be
Boom.
great.
Okay.
Thank
so
you.
Team.
Volunteers
team.
done.
Okay. Thank you for
Any
that.
other questions? You good?
Oh, go ahead. Any other questions or?
No.
Okay. Thank you for that update. Moving forward, number 9, request for future agenda items. Is there any specific requests on anyone's mind? Okay. Seeing none, I think we'll go ahead and move forward with number 10, director update. 10.1.
I think Tony was, yes, thank you. Item number 10, which is really 9, so I apologize for the typo there at the beginning of the agenda. I think Tony was being modest in regards to Halloween. I had a chance to walk the street myself with Mr. Lishman, and it didn't only seem like a really popular event that was attended well, it seemed like a good event. If you've ever attended an event, you understand there's there's a spirit of an event, right? So you walk down to the state fair or you walk into different types of events and you kind of get a very different sense of what type of event it is. And it was nice to see a lot of families out there. People felt safe. Closing the street is definitely a core component of that piece, and so we want to make sure that we shore some of those components up in regards to that part. And it was also nice to see even some of the storefronts past Bedford towards Town Hall participating as well.
Oh, yeah.
On that side where they were kind of handing out trinkets and other pieces. So it's a great event, and you guys all did a fantastic job. And yes, there was some nuances with the jumpies, and we'll get past that. I'm sure there's other components that we can do. As far as Christmas, I think Mr. Potter has been doing a great job. Congratulations and helping everybody. It's everyone's very passionate and zealous in regards to getting some amazing stuff done, right? And so thank you to all of our sponsors, and we'll be making sure that we also, to Mr. Potter's point, send out thank you cards and make acknowledgments, which I spoke to the city manager earlier today. He also wants to thank the roofing company and a lot of the individuals for like the electrical. We've done a lot of good work on the bell tower and a lot of those pieces. And then again, thank you to Julie, our specialist, for helping kind of corral us. I know it's kind of catching Dennis is like corralling a cat, so she's doing a great job with those pieces. As far as any specific department updates, there are a few things, like I shared earlier, coming up as far as the impact report and our Nexus study. We're going to be taking a hard look at our master plan and some of those other pieces, so please keep some of those components in mind. But then I will reference it now, and so we can kind of talk through it since it's part of my update. As far as our facilities, we are working on the downtown restroom, and our goal is to have that done by spring of next year. There are some construction issues and some plumbing issues that we need to take care of, so we can't just clean it and renovate it. We have to take care of some of the plumbing issues with the toilet. I know the merchants, I know everyone's really passionate about the downtown restroom. If you could see my office, I have a chart. It is high importance, high urgency. So we are definitely moving forward on that piece. And then as part of that, we are also working on the dog, trying to figure out some solutions around the dog park and or a dog walk or a dog trail to help alleviate some of the issues that happen downtown on the sidewalk and other pieces like that. So we have a large list of priorities, but we're up to the challenge, and it's very, very exciting to be here. And I believe, Matt, you have update as well?
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to let you guys know that it's youth basketball season right now, so we're in the process of gearing up and getting ready for our youth league, which usually consists of 700 plus kids, 80-ish teams, and so we're gearing up on that. We're also working on our next activity guide. This is a rough copy. I'm got my red pen. I'm gonna go and proofreading it because it's that time of year. So it's very beautiful, lots of color in it. So look for that. That'll be coming out here soon. And then I wanted to give you guys a heads up because this is going to be coming down the road soon, and I don't know what it's going to mean. But we just got notification from our softball officials association that they are no longer, they're retiring. So we're going to be sending out a request, an RFP request, request for proposal, probably right after Thanksgiving to hopefully find another association that will be willing to take it over, and hopefully it, it doesn't impact our fees too much, but it potentially could. So, and then I don't want to get in trouble for not saying hi to my daughter who's watching us from Idaho. So hi, Caitlin.
That's funny. I like it. Hi, Caitlin.
Hey, Caitlin.
Matt's Modest. They've done great work with the recreation guide. Monique Abel, our program supervisor, is amazing. She's been doing really, really good stuff and helping us with our marketing and streamlining that piece. There is a component there in regards to 311, which is a plug. We want to make sure that we collect as much data for our facilities and parks in regards to maintenance. So be on the lookout for that. And correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, we're also printing a few this year?
Yes, the hope is to, since COVID, we have not printed the guide. Everything's been online, which has saved us a significant amount of money. But we are hoping to maybe get like 500 printed, 500 or 1,000 printed, just to kind of see how it goes. It's not a terrible expense to get that many printed. So, so hopefully we'll have some of those around the community as well this year. So,
and that's our update. Available for questions if you have any.
Matt, are those local kids on the front?
No, it's just clip art.
AI?
Chat GBT.
And yeah, and with regards to the bathrooms, I have a question. Would it be possible, because sometimes they're not unlocked, would it be possible to nominate, if you will, a merchant downtown who's open 7 days a week to have a spare key, so we don't have to call city staff in on a Sunday to unlock it just in case it got forgotten? Or can we make a merchant responsible for unlocking it?
Is that a volunteer?
That is correct, and that's in the works.
Okay.
We're working through some
And
of
yes, it
those
is.
pieces.
Yeah.
It's funny because Greg was just here, and he was one of the ones who had kind of told me a little bit about it.
Oh, really? Oh, I told him about it last
Through.
week. So that's
Yeah, exactly. So yes, we're kind of all in the same page,
Okay.
and we're kind of trying to work through some of the, like, how do we do it, right? It's not necessarily a no, it's more of a how.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but good call.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the updates. I think that'll close 10, and moving forward, 11, upcoming items. Do we need to read that, or that's, okay, we'll let that be in the agenda there. And then I would motion that we adjourn, number 12. And our next scheduled meeting will be held on December 18th at Town Hall here.
No, we need a motion, a second, and a vote.
Boom.
I second.
And a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did adjourn? Yeah.
Okay, all in favor.
7:38.
Thank you.
Yeah, I motioned to adjourn. Yeah. I did, I motioned to adjourn.